It's coming up to 20 to 9. The Lecturers and University Staff Union, the UCU, is meeting today to discuss a new ballot for strike action as evidence mounts of the impact of existing action. There has been a boycott on marking students' work, including coursework and exams, affecting many universities, which is why graduation ceremonies have taken place with certificates blank on the class of a degree. The students have the debts, but can't even say often whether they have passed or failed, and that is affecting job offers and future plans. We'll be hearing from Adam Tickell, Vice-Chancellor of the University of Birmingham, in a moment. But first, Dr Jo Grady, who's the General Secretary of the UCU. Good morning, Dr Grady.
Good morning.
Your beef is with the employers, but you are affecting the life chances of young people. Do you accept that?
I think it's important for me to say that the position we are in is literally the last place that any UCU member wants to be in. Our members build up connections, friendships with our students over many years, and we don't take this action lightly. But we are in a place where we have employers that present this sector as world leading to an external audience, but it is riddled with casualisation, insecurity and low pay, and our members have no choice but to stand up for themselves.
But the people paying for that right now, for your action, are young people who want to get on with their lives, who have PhDs not being awarded, that affects their future work, who have job offers hanging in the balance.
We believed that taking this step would force the employer to be serious in negotiations because we understand exactly what you have just outlined. But sadly, what we have seen is that our employers have decided that crushing their own workers is more important than seeing students graduate after years of hard work. And our members have been trying to resolve this dispute since last year. We gave plenty of warning that if we got nowhere in negotiation, that we could end up here. And we're not going to be bullied into gig economy terms and conditions. We deserve better, and the students that we dedicate so much of our working lives to do as well.
Professor Adam Tickell, what do you say to that?
Good morning. So this dispute's been running on for a long time, and when it started, there were basically three or four main areas of contention. The first was problems over the USS pension scheme. Now, these are effectively resolved, and UCU and the employer have absolute community of interest on that. The second, as Jo says, was around terms and conditions and casualisation. And we came to an agreement with the UCU some time ago that we would actually set up a series of agreements about how we would tackle that very fundamental problem, because no employer really would like to continue with the condition where staff are treated in the way that in some places they are. Now, unfortunately, although we came to an agreement at the officer level, UCU were unable to deliver that through their democratic processes. And the final component was around pay. Now, we reached a final settlement, it wasn't an agreement, in February. And the problem is that we're in national collective bargaining. So although there are some employers that could definitely afford to pay more, including my own, there are 143 employers, and there are a very, very large number who are already struggling to pay.
So what's the figure you've offered?
Well, it's slightly complex. So it was 5% for most people, but for lower paid staff, it goes up as much as 8%.
But that's the top level. Whereas Jo Grady, you're asking for?
So our pay claim asks for something significantly more than that. But I think the point that we would make, this isn't about an extra percentage figure, though other education unions have managed to settle because they got enhanced offers. Adam even touched upon it. What we are saying is that we need greater job security for people.
Yeah, he said that, didn't he? One part of it. And I take your point that the issue over insecure work remains. I just want to get to this pay point. So what are you asking for? Let's be absolutely clear about that.
We've asked for a pay claim that will be looking at 10%. Now, the employer have not budged from what Adam just referenced since April. In fact, this whole marking boycott could have been avoided if the employer had negotiated with us since April. Now, we are where we are. Even the Education Ministry have written to UCU and UCU over the weekend. We are ready to negotiate. We would like to see a settlement. But as things stand, UCU have not budged at all since the offer that was rejected in April. And that is where we are.
Is there any scope for negotiation on the 5 to 8%, Professor Tickell? Because, clearly, as I was saying at the start of this, it's a grim position for these young people to be in, not least because their university education was already affected by COVID.
I mean, I really wish they were. I mean, unfortunately, because we're in national collective bargaining, what UC has to do, and it's a membership organisation, what UC has to do is it has to take into account not only those universities that can afford to pay more, but those universities that can't. And so what collective bargaining does is it tends to pull up the wages in areas in those universities that are weaker and depress them in universities which are stronger. The only solution in the long term would be to end national collective bargaining. But the problem with that is you have a spiral on wage price deflation, which is exactly what happened in further education when you stopped having national agreements. So I think the real challenge is that we don't agree on the finances. So universities are saying, and I actually think correctly, we keep on saying we can't afford it collectively, although there are some that can. And UCU keeps on pointing to surpluses in some of the largest institutions and saying, well, universities can. And I think the only way that we can get out of that is to have an agreed approach to sector finances, perhaps getting somebody independent organisation in to come and sort of test the claims, because really we do need to find a way out.
Would you be open to ACAS and an organisation like that, Jo Grady?
Yeah, I mean, we've made it clear to the employer many, many times that we're kind of happy to discuss at any time. I think just the one thing I would say is, with regards to sector finances, our negotiating mechanisms have the capacity to take into account institutions that are financially struggling. If they open their books and demonstrate to the union that they would not be able to afford the sorts of pay increases that we would like to see, we haven't seen institutions do that with us. And what we see is the supposed financial trouble of some institutions used to hold back pay increases for the sector. And if we're to get to the situation that Adam talks about, we need to rebuild trust and confidence. So ACAS would be a great first step in that. But the employer at the minute as a whole is informing UCEA not to budge. And that is the sticking point, not the union's unwillingness to compromise. We have offered forward compromise solutions at negotiation, but we're not being met halfway.
Dr. Jo Grady and Adam Tickell, thank you both.
It is 8:45.